What if the child Jamie and Claire lost long ago stepped back into their lives today, and every choice they ever made suddenly shifted like sand under their feet? Asterisk. Night falls over the ridge and the house is quiet, but the air feels strange, like the world is holding its breath. Claire checks a lamp on the table and hears a soft knock at the door. Jamie moves before the second knock lands. His hand is steady, but his heart is not. He opens the door, and a young woman stands there with eyes the color of his own. Her voice is calm, but tired. She says she has come a long way to find them. She says her name is Faith. The word hangs in the room like a bell after it is struck. Claire freezes. The name cuts through years of grief and takes her back to Paris and to a cradle that never warmed. Jamie cannot speak. He stares at the shape of her face, the line of her jaw, the curl of her hair, and his mind counts the features as if proof will save him from hope. Claire steps closer. She studies the girl with a healer's careful eye and a mother's fear. There is a small scar on the girl's wrist, the kind of mark a child might get from a sharp buckle. Claire remembers the buckle on the baby gown she once packed away. The girl knows things no stranger would know. She knows the lullaby Claire whispered when the walls of Paris closed in. She knows the words Jamie spoke when he promised to carry. Claire's pain is his own. The room seems to tilt. If this is a trick, it is cruel. If it is a miracle, it is dangerous. Time has taken from this family, and time is given to it, and every gift has carried a hidden price. Jamie asks, who sent her? Faith says no one sent her. She says she felt a pull like a tide and followed it step by step through places that did not match and hours that did not fit. Claire hears the word tide and thinks of the way time flows around stones and how some stones are doors. If you are desperate enough to press your hand against them, Faith turns her palms up. There's chalk on her fingers and a folded scrap of paper in her pocket with a date Claire has not yet lived to see. Jamie reaches for the paper but stops. He looks at Claire. Has led men into battle with less fear than he feels now. Claire nods once. It is a small nod, but it holds years of love and the courage to face the unknown. Jamie takes the paper. The date is real. The ink is fresh. The future has left its footprint on their floor.
Faith says she
has one reason for coming. She says she came to stop a death that should never happen. The lamp flame bends. The house breathes. And Jamie and Claire understand that tonight is not a visit. It is the first step of a new fate that could save them or undo everything they've built. Asterisk. The night feels longer than any they have known. After Faith speaks her truth, silence stretches heavy in the house. Jamie paces near the hearth, his boots striking the wooden floor like a drumbeat of doubt. Claire sits across from the girl, her hands folded tight as if holding herself together. Faith does not flinch under their gaze. Instead, she studies the room as though it is familiar to her, as though she has walked here in dreams 1,000 times before. Her eyes rest on a carved wooden cross above the mantel, and without thinking, she whispers a prayer in Gaelic words no outsider could know. Jamie freezes. It is the very prayer he whispered over her still body in Paris all those years ago. His breath catches in his chest, and for the first time, fear turns to trembling hope. Claire moves closer, the healer's instinct rising inside her. She asks questions, each one sharper than the last. What year was she born? Who named her? What memory does she have of Paris? Faith answers with precision, but adds details Claire never shared with anyone, not even Jamie. A scent of lavender oil, the shape of a silver button on a midwife's sleeve, the sound of bells outside the hospital window. Claire feels her throat tighten. These are not things a stranger could invent. They are fragments of a life cut short, fragments that should never have crossed into this moment. Jamie cannot stay still. He grips the edge of the table until his knuckles pale. His voice shakes when he finally asks, "Why now?" At him, she says time is not a straight road but a river with bends and shadows, and sometimes the river returns what was once lost. She tells them she awoke in a place of stone and echoes, where voices pulled at her like threads in the dark. When she stepped through, she found herself walking paths that led here. Claire wants to reject it, to call it madness, but something inside her knows better. She has lived through stones and centuries. She has seen blood rewritten by fate. Still, she fears the cost. She asks what death Faith spoke of, what shadow she has come to stop. Faith lowers her head and does not answer. Instead, she lifts her hand and shows them the folded paper again. Beneath the date already written, there is another line blurred by smudged ink as if someone tried to hide it. Jamie squints and sees only fragments of a name too close to his own bloodline. The fire crackles louder, as if the house itself leans in to listen. Claire feels her pulse race, the air pressing heavy on her chest. Faith whispers that she carries a warning, but with every warning comes a choice. If they change one thread, another may break. Jamie clenches his jaw, his heart torn between holding his daughter close and protecting the life he and Claire already fought to preserve. And in that moment, they both understand. Faith's return is not a gift of comfort. It is a challenge, and the test has only begun. Asterisk, the candle burns low and shadows creep across the walls. But no one in the house dares to close their eyes. Faith sits at the table between her parents. And though her presence feels impossible, she seems steady, as if she belongs more to this room than to the years she skipped. Her hands rest quietly in her lap until Claire notices the faint glow of something hidden beneath her sleeve. When Faith lifts her arm, a thin chain slips out, and at the end of it hangs a small carved stone, warm to the touch, etched with marks Claire recognizes, but has never spoken of. The same marks she saw once on the stones that pulled her through. Centuries. Claire's breath hitches. How could Faith know these symbols? How could she carry them across time? Jamie leans closer, the firelight catching the lines of his face. He asks where the stone came from. Faith says it was left for her in the place of echoes, where the air hummed with voices she could not see. She says it called her name not once, but many times, like a heartbeat guiding her forward. Jamie's hand tightens on the table. His warrior's heart knows battles, knows swords and muskets, but this is a war of time and fate. He feels unarmed. Claire studies the stone, tracing the carvings with trembling fingers. It is not just a stone, it is a key, and keys open doors. She remembers warnings from guileless Duncan, from the priests who whispered of time as God's punishment or gift. Every time Claire thought she had escaped the reach of those stones, they returned, demanding another toll. Faith is proof that the toll has not yet been paid in full. The girl speaks softly, almost as if she fears the walls might overhear. She tells them she has seen glimpses of what is to come, visions that burn behind her eyes when she dreams. A red field, a broken banner, the cry of someone she cannot bear to lose. Jamie feels the weight of every battle he has fought, but this vision carries a sharper edge. Here's the unspoken truth that his family is bound to a future soaked in blood. Unless something changes, Claire pushes for more, desperate to understand. Who is in danger? What must they do? Faith looks down at her hands, her voice shaking now. She says that names are dangerous to speak too soon, that once named, fate may close its grip tighter. Wants to scream at the cruelty of it too. Demand the whole truth, but she knows enough of time to fear its traps. Jamie breaks the silence. He kneels beside Faith and places his rough hand gently over hers. His eyes search her face with a father's love and a soldier's fear. He tells her he lost her once and would face death before he loses her again. Faith lifts her eyes, and in them, Jamie sees both the child he mourned and the woman shaped by unseen years. For a moment, grief and hope stand side by side in the set. Same room, and still, the unanswered question hangs heavy. If Faith has crossed time to save them, who has already begun moving the pieces against them? Dawn crawls over the ridge, gray and reluctant, and still no one has slept. The world outside looks unchanged, yet everything inside the house feels altered, as if the walls themselves now guard a secret too heavy to hold. Jamie steps onto the porch, his breath meeting the cold air. But instead of calm morning silence, he hears a strange stillness. Birds are missing from their chorus, and the forest seems to watch him. He has known the quiet before ambush, the Silence before muskets thunder, and this feels the same. When he returns inside, Faith is at the window, her gaze fixed on the tree line. She whispers that she knows someone is coming. Claire stiffens, her healer's hands gripping the edge of the table as if it were an anchor. Faith turns to them, her face pale but certain. She says the path that brought her here is not hers alone. Something else slipped through, something that follows her steps like a shadow across time. Jamie does not need more words. He straps on his sword the weight, both comfort and curse. Claire protests, saying they cannot fight what they do not yet understand. Jamie replies that waiting unarmed is worse than facing a storm blind. The girl steps forward and tells them the shadow does not wield weapons of steel, but weapons of choice. She explains that every decision they make from this moment will feed or starve it, that history itself has become their battlefield. Claire feels the chill settle deep into her bones. She has stitched wounds, battled fever, delivered children under gunfire. But nothing prepared her for a war fought in silence and possibility. Jamie demands to know if the shadow threatens his family. Brianna, Roger, Jemmy, Mandy. Faith lowers her eyes. She does not speak a name, but her silence says enough. Claire feels the room tilt. If the return of one child risks the lives of the others, then love itself has become a weapon turned against them. The morning deepens, light spilling through the window, yet every shadow seems darker than it should be. No notices the folded paper on the table again. The date written there now glimmers faintly, as if the ink is alive. She touches it, and for a heartbeat the room bends around her, the air pulling tight like the stones once did. Faith grabs her hand and stops her. She warns that the paper is not just a message, it is a door. Claire's fingers tremble, for she knows doors in time never open without a price. Jamie stands between them, aid torn by two instincts, shielding his wife and daughter from danger, and seizing the weapon time itself has placed before them. His voice is low, but firm. He tells them that no matter the shadow, no matter the threat, the Frasers will not bow. Faith lifts her head, meeting her father's defiance with her own quiet strength. Yet behind her steady gaze, Claire sees fear not of enemies outside, but of choices within that could tear them apart. The day has only just begun, and already destiny waits at their doorstep. The day wears on, and the ridge hums with ordinary sounds: water drawn from wells, children laughing in the fields, neighbors passing on the dirt road. Yet inside the house, every breath carries the weight of centuries. Yet Faith sits at the table, her fingers brushing over the paper that holds the future, while Jamie and Claire watch her like guardians of a fragile fire. She speaks at last, her voice steady, though her eyes are shadowed. She tells them that her presence here has already begun to unravel threads far beyond their home. Claire frowns, trying to piece it together, but Faith explains in a way that sounds less like a prophecy and more like cold truth. She says history is not fixed, it bends when touched, and every touch leaves ripples. By stepping through the stones alive, she has disturbed the waters, and already ripples are racing outward. Armies that should have marched at dawn now hesitate. Letters that once arrived in time are lost on the road. The fate of nations shifts with each breath she takes here. Jamie's jaw tightens because he knows wars are built on small changes, one delayed rider, one whispered rumor, one blade raised too soon. Claire listens with her healer's heart, but fear claws at her. She remembers Paris, remembers how every choice to save one life seemed to condemn another. She has lived this paradox before, and Faith's return feels like its cruelest echo. If Faith lives, what becomes of Brianna? If one child is saved, does another fade like smoke? The thought strikes her like a knife. She cannot bear to lose. Either Jamie, however, sees the matter differently. He has buried too many of his kin, too many friends on bloody fields. If time has offered him back his firstborn daughter, he will not surrender her again, no matter what the world demands. His voice is sharp when he says it. Let history bend, let kings rise or fall, but a father's right is to keep his child. The clash between them is quiet but fierce. Claire warns that love alone cannot guard against the weight of history. Jamie answers that history means nothing if family is gone. Faith watches them, her face unreadable, but her hands shake as she clasps the stone at her neck. She knows their love is both their strength and their weaknesses. She whispers that the shadow following her feeds on this very conflict. Every disagreement, every fracture between them, opens the door wider. The air in the house thickens. Outside, a hawk circles high above, its cry sharp and foreboding. Claire looks at Jamie, her eyes wet but steady. She asks him whether saving Faith is worth risking the lives of Brianna and the grandchildren. Jamie does not answer at once. His silence is louder than words. And in that silence, Faith sees the truth. The Fraser family stands at the edge of a choice that could redraw not just their fate, but the fate of a world waiting beyond the horizon. The fire has burned down to embers, but the room glows with something sharper than light. Jamie stands near the hearth, his shoulders squared as if he is ready for battle, while Claire sits rigid in her chair, her hands pressed hard against her knees. Faith lingers between them, her presence like a fragile bridge stretched over a chasm. The silence is thick until Claire breaks it with a voice that trembles less from fear and more from fury. She asks Faith why she came now, why, after all these years, she appears with warnings, but no clear answers. Faith's eyes soften, but her words cut. She says she did not come to comfort them. She came because their love, indulging, fierce, eternal, will soon be turned into a weapon against them. Jamie frowns, his hand tightening around the hilt of his sword, though there is no enemy in sight. He tells her love is not a weakness. It has carried him through prisons, wars, oceans. But Faith steps closer and shakes her head. She insists that love can be bent, twisted, used to blind them from what they must see. Claire leans forward, her voice low but sharp. I see. She asks what faith means. What danger could twist something so sacred? The girl answers with a whisper that seems to carry more than her own voice. She says the shadow knows how to choose its prey. It will not strike with steel, will strike by forcing them to choose between each other. The words drop into the room like stones into deep water, ripples spreading through silence. Claire's mind races with faces: Brianna, Roger, Jemmy, Mandy, all, their lives strung together like fragile threads. Jamie hears only one truth. Someone seeks to turn his love into a blade that cuts him. His chest burns with defiance, but beneath it lies fear he cannot voice. Faith steps back, her hands clutching the stone at her neck as though it burns her. She tells them she has seen a glimpse of what lies ahead. A battlefield not made of grass or hills, but of choices. In her vision, Jamie and Claire stand apart, not together. One clings to her hand, the other turns away. And in that moment, history itself cracks, spilling fire across a map she cannot fully see. Claire rises suddenly, her eyes blazing with the fury of a woman who has lived through centuries, yet still carries the ache of losing one child. She declares that she will not let fate play dice with her family again. Jamie looks at her, torn between pride and fear. For he knows that Claire's defiance is as dangerous as any blade. Faith trembles as she whispers that the test has already begun. Each word they speak, each vow they make, draws the shadow closer. The embers in the hearth flare for a heartbeat, then sink back into darkness. In that dim light, Jamie and Claire stare at each other across the chasm that is growing between them. Faith sees it, feels it, and knows that if they cannot bridge it soon, the shadow will not need to strike at all. It will only need to wait. The night folds into silence again, but this silence is not commit, is heavy, trembling, like the earth before it breaks open. Claire stands with her back to the table, gripping the window frame as though the glass itself might hold her steady. Jamie moves to her side, though his steps are slow, as if he walks against some unseen weight pressing him down. Faith sits, very still, her hands clasped over the stone at her throat, her face pale yet burning with secrets she dares not spill. Then the air shifts. A low hum rises, faint at first, but strong enough that the walls seem to quiver. Claire feels it in her bones, the same sound she once heard at Cray Na Dun when the stones called her through time. Jamie hears it too, though his mind knows nothing of stones, and the sound strikes him as a warning drumbeat from another world. Faith's eyes widen. She whispers that the shadow is no longer waiting. It has found them. The lamp flame bends sideways as if pulled by an invisible wind. The folded paper on the table trembles, the inked date glowing faintly as if lit from within. Jamie steps forward, hand on his sword, ready to fight what he cannot see. Claire grabs his arm, her voice sharp with fear, telling him steel cannot cut time. Faith rises slowly, her eyes locked on the shifting paper. She says this is the choice she came to warn them about. If they open the door hidden in that paper, one path may save them, but another may end them all. The hum grows louder, and the house itself feels as though it is breathing. Jamie looks at Claire, his face torn between fury and love. He tells her that no matter what waits beyond, he will not lose her, not again. Claire's eyes shine, caught between defiance and dread, and she clutches his hand as though it is the only anchor left in the world. Faith steps closer, her voice breaking. Now, she begs them to listen, to understand that their love can either close the door or fling it wide. But before she can finish, the paper bursts into flame without heat, words burning into the air itself. For a heartbeat, they all see it. A battlefield. Smoke rising, a name carved in fire, a name they know, a name bound to their bloodline.